Today, we're going to pick up our lesson with 30, 60, 90 triangles. They are special right triangles, which means that there is a special way that we can solve for the missing sides. These are our notes from yesterday that you should have kept up with. The very first thing that we're going to do on 30, 60, 90 is the very first thing that we did with our 45, 45 degree triangles, and that is identify the hypotenuse. I've had students ask me today multiple times, Mr. Schote, is x always the hypotenuse? And the answer is no, x is not always the hypotenuse. X and y and a and d, all of those letters are just variables, meaning they are just letters that are holding the spot of a number, most often a number that we do not already know. So your triangle could be labeled T, W, M with the different sides. It could be labeled ABC. It could be labeled XYZ. It could be labeled all kinds of letters. You just need to know that the side that is opposite the right angle is my hypotenuse. The side opposite the right angle is my hypotenuse. On a 30, 60, 90, the other two sides are not congruent, meaning they are not the same. The way we determine what side is what is across or opposite of the 30-degree angle will be my short side. And opposite of the 60-degree angle will be what is called the long side. So I have a hypotenuse, a short side, and a long side. Now let me give you the formulas for how we will find each one of them. The short leg, or side, can be found by taking the hypotenuse and dividing it by 2. Or you can use the long side and divide it by the square root of 3. The long side can be found by taking the short side and multiplying it by the square root of 3. And the hypotenuse can be found by taking the short side and multiplying it by 2. Our little note to the side here states the shorter leg is always opposite the 30-degree angle, which is how we identified our short side. And the long side or leg is always opposite the 60-degree angle, which again is what we did when we labeled our triangle. So let's look at number 4 here. It says find the value of each variable. Our first job is to identify the hypotenuse. What side is opposite the 60? Short or long? The long side, which leaves the only other side to label as the short side. X is the long side. X can be found by, or I should say the long side can be found by taking the short side. So I'm going to write long equals S times the root of 3. And our short side here was 5 times the root of 3. Can I multiply inside and outside of the radical symbol? No, so I'm just going to leave it 5 root of 3. The y is the hypotenuse, and our hypotenuse said take the short side and multiply it by 2. What is the short side? What's 5 times 2? 10 is my answer. Number 5. Opposite the right angle is my hypotenuse. Opposite the 30-degree angle is my what? Which leaves the y as my long side. My short side is 14. If I go looking for my hypotenuse, it says take the short times it by 2. So my hypotenuse is 2 times 14, which would give me 28. Good job. My long side said to take the short side and multiply it by the square root of 3. My short side is 14 times the square root of 3. Can I do anything with those two? No. 14 square root of 3. There are some patterns with 30, 60, 90s, depending on what you start with. Some of you will pick up on those patterns. They're maybe not as easy to remember as our tricks and patterns are with 45, 45s, but they are still there, and you'll see them. I'll show you 1 or 2 of them. Number 6 here gives me what side of the triangle? It gives me the hypotenuse. Opposite the 30 is the short side, and the last side remaining is my long side. The short side, it said, could be found by taking the hypotenuse and dividing it by 2. So what is 32 divided by 2? So my short side equals 16. The long side said to take the short side and multiply it by the root of 3. What is my short side again? Times the root of 3 gives me 16 square root of 3. Good job. Let's skip number 7 and go to number 8. What's the first thing I do? Find that hypotenuse. What side did they give me? My man's killing it over here. Long side. So y is my short side. When you're given the long side first, you want to find the short side because that's what's going to set you up for the hypotenuse. The long side said that you could take the short side times the root of 3. You could undo that equation by plugging in 20 where L is, or we can just use the formula for short side, which is the long side divided by the root of 3. So we have 20 divided by the root of 3. Do we like square roots on the bottom of a problem? So what do? We multiply it to the top and bottom, right? I hope you guys have picked up on that now. This is day 3 of us doing this. This gives me 20 root of 3 on top, square root of 9 on bottom. But what do I know about the square root of 9? It's a perfect square, and it's just 3. So for my short side, which is y, my answer is 20 square root of 3 over 3. To find the hypotenuse, it says to take the short side, 20 root of 3 over 3, and to multiply it by 2. And to keep my expression here balanced, I'm going to put 2 over 1. Doesn't change anything. And this becomes 40 root of 3 over 3. Shania, you awake? Yes. You don't look awake. You gotta pick your head up, girl. So 40 will not divide by 3 pretty, so I'm going to leave it just as that, 40 root of 3 over 3.